Mid-flashback, Jin-Woo snapped, screamed for the illusion to stop. He said he knew it was fake and demanded the truth. The dream cracked wide open, and suddenly he was standing in a sea of system messages, asking if he wanted to restart the world. He yelled for the one behind it, and a figure stepped out. Jin-Woo recognized him and asked him if he was the real deal. It was the Shadow Daddy himself. Shadow Daddy then offered him paradise, telling him that if he wanted, he could live here forever. It would be like an endless dream. Jin-Woo wasn't buying it. He didn't want to be trapped inside someone else's fantasy, but the Shadow Daddy hit him with the twist. He told him that this world wasn't his creation. It came from Jin-Woo's own wish to undo his failures, mixed with his power. He told him that this place was death, a quiet, peaceful hell. The king said he had watched Jin-Woo suffer, fight, and survive longer than anyone. He was proof of that pain, the final reward, and the last horror. He was rest, and he was terror. He was him. The king of the dead told him that within this world, Jin-Woo could do anything. He can steal power, hell. He can also make Shadow Daddy's servants his. Not only that, he can reshape everything, saying that in this domain, he was basically a god, but only here. Jin-Woo asked if that meant they shared the same ability. The king smiled. He said he had waited forever for this moment, because he was the Shadow Monarch, the ruler of darkness itself. Jin-Woo asked why him, and the king said he would show him everything, their beginning, their end, and his true start. The story jumps back to the city where Mr. Aura Farmer is still stuck in his ice cube nightmare. Doggo takes one look and tells Creepy Grandpa he is cooked. Across the street, Thomas Andre says, "My glorious king just vanished like he rage quit the game." Leonard nods while Hunter Beck starts yelling that it is not possible. Without him, there is nobody left to clap for these magical beasts. Lim is up on a rooftop having an existential crisis, thinking maybe he should not have trusted whoever gave him intel earlier. He wonders if he can just bomb the monsters into dust. Now he is done overthinking and tells the other hunters to lock and load. They are aiming at some crusty-looking ice monster that looks like it skipped winter skincare. But right as they are about to shoot, Mr. Aura Farmer starts glowing like he plugged into a whole power plant. Creepy Grandpa sees this and goes into full panic mode. Inside the ice, they spot my glorious king's dark heart turning into a mini inferno. Creepy Grandpa and Doggo look at each other and immediately sprint toward him. They scream that they need to stop the real king from showing up now that the fake one got deleted. Before they can do anything, though, Riken gets yeeted straight in the face by some mystery man and crashes into Creepy Grandpa. Both of them go flying into a wall like NPCs. That mystery man stands in front of Mr. Aura Farmer and declares that nobody is allowed to touch his child. Then, boom, we get a lore drop. Way back in the old days, an absolute being split light and darkness like it was nothing and made his little squads. The light side got emissaries. The dark side got sovereigns. One was meant to babysit the world, and the other was meant to burn it down. And of course, these two squads started fighting forever. They kept stabbing and dying and respawning like it was an endless arena match. Then, one of the emissaries, the bright light dude, started questioning the whole setup. He asked the Absolute why he was just watching everyone die and not doing a damn thing. They begged him to help, but the Absolute just stood there like a toxic player who refuses to press a button. That was when the emissaries figured it out. The war was never meant to end. It was just for the Absolute's sick fun. So they snapped and started a full-on rebellion. The Monarch points to this whole tragic flashback and says that was him back in the day. He tells Mr. Aura Farmer that he was the only one who stood against the rebellion, but his little army was no match for the whole squad turning on him. When he thought he was done for good, the Shadow Monarch opened his eyes in the dark and found out the Absolute had stashed away a hidden power inside him, like a secret cheat code. That was the day the real him was born. He used that power to bring his fallen soldiers back to life and led them back into the war zone. But when he got there, the game was already over. Brilliant Light had killed the Absolute and started calling themselves the new bosses. Armed with weapons packed with the Absolute's leftover power, they started hunting down every monarch they could find. Legia, the giant king, got clapped and captured, and the balance between the rulers and monarchs got wrecked. He tells Jin-Woo that the monarchs were starting to realize they were about to get wiped out, so he reached out to them with a deal they could not refuse. They were cornered and had no choice but to team up. From that point on, he fought not as a light fragment or an emissary, but as the one and only Shadow Monarch. He built up his army again by scooping up leftover soldiers off the battlefield. When he joined forces with the Destruction Army, led by the Berserk Dragon King, the fear got real. Both the rulers and the monarchs started shaking. Two monarchs got so scared, they turned on him. That betrayal nearly erased his entire entire Shadow army. His power was too much for their fragile egos. The Beast Monarch dipped and left his crew to die. But the Monarch of White Flamer got uninstalled from the server by Shadow Daddy. But then the rulers dropped out of the sky like they just remembered how to be humble. They surrounded the Shadow Monarch and dropped to their knees, asking for forgiveness. They said the war was pointless now. They could have erased him if they wanted to, but instead they begged for peace. It was their way of honoring the guy who used to fight right beside them. But my glorious king was not ready to let that go. He asked them if they had forgotten how they stabbed his liege while calling him their master. That only made the betrayal worse. One of them tried to reason with him, saying they just wanted the war to end. But he told them, "Fine, if you want peace, then stab me right now and call yourselves the winners." Ilhuans backed off and begged again for forgiveness. Every soldier bowed their heads. The Shadow Monarch was tired. He could not find a way out. So he went underground to wait and plan. Since he already trapped Baran inside him, he figured he would take down the Beast Monarch next once he recovered. But while he was gone, the other monarchs got hunted down by the rulers one by one. When he came back and met the ones still alive, hiding in some dimensional crack, the Dragon King made sure no more fighting broke out. He knew they had to rebuild, so he welcomed the Shadow Monarch in, and together they went hunting for a new world to start fresh. The Shadow Monarch kept going, and Jin-Woo finally asked the big question. Was he talking about Earth? The Shadow Monarch said yes, and showed him ruined cities that looked all too familiar to Jin-Woo. He stared at the scene and realized this was the demon castle all over again, so he asked if this was the future. The monarch shut that down fast, saying this was actually the past. Jin-Woo blinked and asked what the hell he meant by that. The monarch broke it down. In the past, the rulers had shown up way too late. The monarchs had already wiped everything. The rulers were pissed that the Chaos Army they had failed to destroy came back and ended another world. So to fix their mess, they used a forbidden tool from the Absolute Being. A little thing called the Cup of Reincarnation turned back time 10 years. And the rulers poured everything into that one shot. But Earth was too weak to survive a god-tier deathmatch between monarchs and rulers. No matter who won, the planet would still get destroyed. So the rulers went into full desperation mode. If they could not save everyone, they at least wanted someone left alive to carry on. That was when Jin-Woo asked if that was why hunters were made. The Shadow Monarch confirmed it. They wanted humans strong enough to survive in a world filled with monsters and nukes wearing skin suits. Jin-Woo then had another realization. The Demon King from the tower was just leftover memories from the Shadow Monarch, and this world might have already been wiped out multiple times. The Monarch confirmed it. Time could not be reversed by higher beings, but they could sense when it had been tampered with, and now the cup was broken. Jin-Woo was shook and asked how. That power was not infinite. The monarch said even the Absolute got clapped by his own creations. No power lasts forever. Then Jin-Woo asked how anyone could kill the Absolute. The monarch said it was just like humans getting bodied by their own machines. They built them. They died to them. Same energy. He explained that the monarchs had started copying the rulers. Just like the rulers gave humans power to fight beasts, the monarchs came up with their own plan. They would take over Earth early by sneaking in through human bodies. They wanted to turn Earth into one giant ambush. Now that magic energy was leaking everywhere, they needed strong hosts, but both the Shadow Monarch and the Monarch of Destruction were way too powerful. No human could carry that kind of weight. That was when one of the smartest mages in the land walked up to the Shadow Monarch with a deal. He would help find the perfect host. In return, he wanted a body that could never die. That lunatic was known as the Architect. But since no living thing could hold death without breaking, so the architect cooked up a system to find the one human weird enough to pull it off. He needed someone who could sniff out magic like a bloodhound, punch through buildings without flinching, tank trauma like it was breakfast, and still stay mentally sane. The man wanted a god in gym clothes, and guess what? He found one. Some random loser who didn't just survive his system, but broke it in half and made it beg for patch notes. It was you, he said to my glorious king. You who used to be a walking hospital bill, always a second away from death and yet somehow still standing. I watched you get up again and again while flipping the bird to the rules. So I chose you, not because of fate, not because of some prophecy, but because I liked watching you wreck everything. I am your proof, your receipt, your damn trophy. Hearing all this, Jin-Woo looks him in the eye and asks if, even after flexing that hard, he still wasn't strong enough to hold all that death juice. The Shadow Monarch admits the system was rigged to feel like a game. to keep Rizzy-Woo entertained, motivated, distracted. He used human preferences and sprinkled just enough dopamine to level up his body little by little. All that shadow energy cooking inside him, shaping him for this one moment, and still, it wasn't enough. Rizzy-Woo then drops another bomb. Why did you betray the architect? The Shadow Monarch gives a sigh and lays it bare. The rulers said sorry. The monarchs stabbed each other in the back. He picked a side, not out of loyalty, but because he caught feelings. Time with Rizzy-Woo was too good. He didn't want to let go, so he didn't. They became one, not metaphorically, literally. Body, soul, all of it. So he gives Rizzy-Woo a choice. Stay in this dead zone and vibe forever inside his dream world, or walk out and face the ops in reality. My glorious king doesn't even blink. He asks why the Shadow Monarch dipped to another world if he already gave up fighting. And the reply hits hard. There was no place for him, no home, just empty air and fading purpose. Rizzy-Woo nods. Then I choose the same. This is not my place. Not yet. The Shadow Monarch hears him, smiles like a proud emo dad, and starts to walk away. Rizzy-Woo asks if this is goodbye. The Shadow Monarch replies, I will return to rest, but you, as the new Shadow Monarch, will live an imperishable life. The Shadow Monarch tells Rizzy-Woo the truth, plain and cold. The odds of them meeting again are basically zero. His death made his power complete. But before he can drop instructions like a tutorial box, Rizzy-Woo cuts him off with a quiet I know. The monarch just grins. Of course he knows, because they are the same damn person. Outside that death zone, creepy grandpa and doggo show up just in time to watch my glorious king come back from the void like it was a casual Tuesday. They run into one of those shiny light fragments and immediately start interrogating him. A disaster is waking up inside that body you're babysitting. Are you really trying to bring world-ending smoke just to help the Shadow Monarch? What is wrong with you? Doggo tells creepy grandpa that they're out of time and gets ready to swing. But the Il Huan already saw it coming and moves to hold them off. All three of them crash into battle. Creepy grandpa stabs first with his oversized fork, but misses. Doggo dives in from above with those claws, but still gets nothing. Then Il Huan pops behind grandpa and stabs him right in the shoulder like it's personal. Doggo watches this clown show and realizes something's off. The Il Huan isn't just dodging, he's reading every move like it's a script. Grandpa's ice powers get juked. Doggo's own hits get blocked. Creepy grandpa tries to sneak up and lock the dude in place, but gets bodied again. Il Huan boots creepy grandpa straight into a building. Doggo tries to take his head off with one bite, but ends up with a hole in his own skull. Before he can scream a second time, Il Huan caves in his ribs and sends him flying. Doggo loses it, pulls the weapon out of his damn face and roars like a beast, but his body won't move right. Then he turns and sees Rizzy-Woo, and the fear kicks in. The mana is screaming. This isn't the weakling from before, this is the real monarch. Creepy grandpa recovers and tells the Il Huan that cheap tricks won't work anymore. He turns to Doggo and tells him to go again, but Doggo backs off, saying that he was done with this fight. Creepy grandpa looks like his brain froze over. He turns to Doggo and asks him, after all this, you're just quitting? Doggo says, listen to the mana, it's crying. The real Shadow Monarch is coming. He opens a portal and dips. Creepy grandpa yells about promises, but Doggo shuts him down. That deal died with the human form. This thing that's coming, I want no part of it. Creepy grandpa calls him a coward. Doggo shrugs. You don't get it. You've never faced the real one. Then poof, he's gone. Left on his own? Creepy grandpa says. Fine, then die cold. He slams his trident into the ground and summons a blizzard from hell. Lim sees the weather go full apocalypse and tells every hunter to retreat now. Ice spears rain down while grandpa starts charging his final attack. But the only one left to stop him is a shiny fragment and one very awake Shadow Monarch. Creepy grandpa started yelling and screaming like the drama queen he is, and started talking big about humans not knowing their place while summoning a frozen nuke in the sky. The man was screaming about voids and darkness like that meant anything to my glorious king. Il Huan just stood there wide-eyed, probably regretting every decision that led to this moment. Before he could even move, an ice spear dropped out of the sky and took his arm like it was a snack. Then came the real twist. A shadow flew up and crushed the massive ice ball before it could hit the ground. Baru made his comeback, and this time, he was clearly built differently. On the battlefield, my glorious king appeared in his real form, standing over the fragment like a dark god, shielding him with zero effort. He looked at creepy grandpa and told him to stop pretending he was royalty when his power was that pathetic. Upon seeing my glorious king, Creepy Grandpa froze. His brain short-circuited the second he realized Jin-Woo had broken the spell and that all the Commander-class Shadow soldiers were back on their feet. And then came the real goosebumps moment. Mr. Aura Farmer stepped out, glowing with menace. He asked if the Beast Monarch had run away already, and Creepy Grandpa started looking like he wanted to evaporate on the spot. Jin-Woo followed up with, "Who the hell gave you permission to dip?" And at that point, the old man knew he was cooked. A giant dome of darkness began to grow around my glorious king, and it did not stop. It kept expanding until it swallowed a whole chunk of the city, then kept going until it could be seen from space. Straight up, half the earth dipped into darkness. And in the middle of it all, Jin-Woo whispered, "Found you." Creepy Grandpa thought this was his shot. He convinced himself Jin-Woo was distracted and threw everything into one last desperate attack. He gathered all his mana, chucked his trident, and prayed for a miracle. Jin-Woo caught it with one hand like it was nothing and crushed it into trash. Creepy Grandpa just stood there looking like he saw a ghost. But Jin-Woo did not even swing back. He just said, "Stay right there. I will get to you after I clean up the beast." Meanwhile, deep in some forest, Doggo popped out of a portal looking stressed. And why shouldn't he? The man was running from death. He thought he had more time. He thought arguing with the Frost Monarch was worth it, but he thought wrong. Now he was planning to hide until the Dragon King showed up. But the second he sensed my glorious king behind him, he hit the floor fast. That was not fear. That was straight up survival mode. He said he did not want to fight, begged for mercy, swore loyalty, tried to play the role of the loyal dog again. He said he would help fight the Dragon King if Jin-Woo spared him. For a second, my glorious king decided to entertain him. Doggo thought he got away with it, thought he fooled him. He thought to himself how Drippy Woo was soft in his mind. He was already plotting, waiting for the moment to betray him again, telling himself all he needed was time. But Jin-Woo had other plans. He said, "Cool, but we still need to settle one thing. I got 5 scars thanks to your claws. You survived 5 attacks, and I forgive you." As he heard that, Doggo's soul left his body. He transformed into his full beast form and roared like that would change anything. He said he would drag Jin-Woo down with him, even if he died. Then he charged forward. Drippy Woo pulled out his dagger and blinked through the air like a shadow. Doggo did not even realize what hit him until blood spilled out and a whole arm was gone. Before the pain even caught up, Jin-Woo looked him dead in the eyes and said, "4 more to go." Back in Korea, Baru was busy patching up the hunters. Creepy Grandpa was watching from a distance, not giving a single damn about the humans. But the second he saw Igris step forward, he knew trouble was brewing. The Night of Death was here. One of the 2 wings of the Shadow Army. A walking problem. Now that the Shadows had full power again, he thought about how they were going to be a problem for him, as they would just keep healing as long as Jin-Woo had mana, and Creepy Grandpa was already running low after that dramatic transformation stunt earlier. Creepy Grandpa dropped down and tried to talk tough, and told Igris not to bother trying anything stupid, asking him, "Do you really think you can stop me?" Igris did not answer. He just stabbed his sword into the ground, and from the shadows behind him came the real problem. Jin-Woo stepped out like he had been waiting for someone to test him. He tossed 2 bloody fangs on the ground like trash. That was Doggo and whatever was left of him. Creepy Grandpa looked like someone just slapped his soul. The Beast Monarch got clapped in just a few minutes. Jin-Woo said it clear as day. The Plague Monarch is gone. The Beast Monarch is gone. And now it is your turn. Creepy Grandpa tried to gear up with his ice tricks, but before he could even move, Jin-Woo threw 2 daggers straight into his body, one in the chest and one in the shoulder. The man tried to fight back using the last drops of mana, but it was pathetic. Drippy Woo just grabbed him by the mouth and sliced him open like it was nothing. Said the doggo died on the 4th strike and asked how long Creepy Grandpa could last. The answer was not long. Creepy Grandpa screamed as his body turned to shards of ice and dust. Just like that, all the monarchs who showed up got deleted. Jin-Woo turned to Baru and asked where the man who protected him went. Baru said he vanished, and we cut to that man dragging himself across the ground with his body falling apart into light. His hand started disintegrating. The cost of using power meant for something more than human, but he was fine with it, said it was how things should be. Then a dagger landed near him, and a familiar voice called out, "You really thought I would not notice you leaving like that?" Jin-Woo walked up slowly, asked why he left without a word, then quietly called him father. The scene cut to the past, where Rizzi-Woo's father, Sun Il-hwan, was stuck inside that cursed dungeon. After beating the boss, he had an hour to escape, but something went wrong. The rulers came to him and gave him two options: rot in the void or take their power and fight the monarchs. He agreed and became their puppet, sent back to Earth to stop the very monsters they feared, including the Shadow Monarch who would soon be born. But despite all the power, all the effort, he failed. He could not stop it, and now he faced the one he was supposed to kill, his own son, my glorious king. Even though the rulers knew that the biggest walking apocalypse was sealed inside Rizzi-Woo, they just stood back and watched. These crusty lightstick cosplayers, who had spent centuries doing everything to stop the Shadow Monarch from waking up, suddenly flipped the script. The brightest one among them gave Il-hwan a new order, and that was how he was given the order to protect the Shadow Monarch. Because now they understood one thing: only the Shadow Army had the juice to stop the Dragon Monarch, and that bastard was set to arrive before the rulers even got off their holy asses. It was the dumbest gamble in history, betting everything on the one guy who could solo the planet. Nobody knew if Rizzi-Woo would protect humans or crush them, but now they had their answer. That's why Il-hwan stepped in. That's why he stood by his son instead of trying to kill him. And when he finally admits it, he looks broken. He says he never wanted his kid to see this side of him. And for the first time, Drippy Woo starts crying. This man, who's been soloing monarchs left and right like it's cardio, breaks down because his father finally spoke. Il-hwan asks Drippy Woo, "Did you hate me?" Rizzi-Woo says sometimes, then he apologizes. He says every time he was on the edge of death in dungeons, fighting to survive just to see his mom's face again, he would remember his dad. And yeah, he hated him, but he missed him too. That grief was always mixed with love. So he asks, "Did you miss us?" And Il-hwan says, "Yeah, I missed you all the time. You couldn't see me, but just watching you grow kept me alive." Then he hugs Rizzi-Woo, tells him he turned out well, and it hits like a truck. Drippy Woo's voice cracks when he asks, "Was it the rulers? Did they control you and then throw you away?" Il-hwan explains, "No, they just gave him the choice, and he chose this path on his own. He chose to protect his son, even if it cost him everything, and for that, he had no regrets. But now all he wants is a little more time to talk a little longer, to just exist beside him. He says sorry for not being a great father, and then, just like that, the man starts to fade away into the air, turning into dust as his son screams in agony. The camera pans away as Rizzi-Woo breaks down in the middle of the battlefield. Far away, his mother stands at a window, sensing something in her heart cracking open. She calls out to Jinna and tells her, "Let's move now." With tears in her eyes, she repeats it again. Let's move now, because somewhere deep inside, she knew it was finally okay to move on. Meanwhile, Rizzi-Woo is full of blood and grief and pure rage. He turns to the world like it personally wronged him and screams to the heavens, "You will pay. Every last one of you will pay for what happened today." His voice cuts through the world like a blade, and that scream marks the start of the real war. We